Hi Flosstube, it is Lily at 42 Stitches. This video is going to be a little different than my usual videos. No cross-stitching in this, so if you're only interested in my cross-stitching, you can skip this video, and in about a week or two I'll probably see if I can get another video up on my cross-stitch updates. I'm just doing a quick video now because one of my subscribers, Debbie Duarte, hi Debbie if you're watching, she's been watching for quite some time, I think actually since my first video, and always has wonderful comments, and she commented a couple of videos back about Portuguese food and how I should do something in one of my videos about Portuguese food. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it because I don't edit my videos, as you know, so I couldn't splice it at the end of one of my regular cross-stitching updates, so I figured I'll just do a video completely dedicated on some Portuguese food. And then the other challenge is I wasn't going to cook Portuguese food for you, again, because I don't edit, and watching me wait for water to boil or for something to cook is just not really good viewing. So I'm just going to show you the end result, basically. My folks came to visit on Sunday, and they still live, well, they're moving, but they still live in Waterbury, Connecticut, where I grew up, that has a big Portuguese community. So they get access to a lot of Portuguese food that I don't get down here, because there's markets and all kinds of stuff over there to get this stuff. Plus Dad and a bunch of his friends go to other Portuguese towns that have really big markets, and they buy in bulk, they distribute to everybody. It's a process. So when they visit, they usually bring something for us. So they brought a couple of things on Sunday, and I figured let's do a video about them because we're having some of it for dinner today. I just got home from work a little bit ago, cooked it up. Family should be coming somewhat soon. I figured let me get a quick video in to talk about it. So this one's for you, Debbie. And you're probably going to be familiar with this, but something new for everybody else. So what we're having for dinner today is Aidas. And what are Aidas? They are a Portuguese sausage, specific to the northeast part of Portugal, where my family is from. Trás-os-Montes, I've mentioned it. Trás-os-Montes, by the way, means behind the mountains. Trás means like atrás, which means behind. Os, the montes, mountains. Montanha, monte is mountain. So Trás-os-Montes is the region. The town specifically that these are really known, are famous for, the city that is, that these are the most famous in, is Mirandela, which is kind of close to where my family is from, probably an hour, maybe not even an hour from the villages they're from, so still pretty much in the same region. And they have an interesting story. They are my favorite Portuguese sausage, and here they are cooked up, and I have one cut up already a little bit too, so you can kind of have a look at the inside of it, and I'll give you another view of that in a second. It smells so good in here right now. So this is one of my favorite sausages. The story of the Aida. Well, let me describe what's in it first, and then I'll talk about the origins of it. So it's meat and bread, basically, with a lot of garlic, and then it's a bit of smoke in it too. Well, it's dried and then smoked. And those are like the predominant smell, is you get that smokiness. You don't want anything too strong of the smokiness, and there's a good garlickiness to it. And then the texture, as you can see, this one is very bready actually, but you can kind of see it's very bready is what it is. What you do is you cook up the meats, it shreds up, you mix it with bread, which makes it kind of mushy, and then you stuff the sausage, hang it up to dry and smoke and all that business. So the story of their origin is back during the Inquisition. A lot of Jewish families in that region would make these sausages, but with chicken or game meat, rabbit, whatever they'd find. And then they would add a lot of the bread, a lot of the garlic, alho, which is where the name comes from, Aida, and then smoke it, which most of the sausages are smoked anyway. But by doing that, they had a sausage that they could eat and sort of hide the fact that they're keeping kosher, because you can't eat pork. And pork is really big in Portugal, especially in that region of Portugal, and lots of different types of pork sausages in the region. So this way they were able to hide the fact that they have not converted to Christianity, which everyone was supposed to. There was, I forget the name of the decree, but there was some decree you had to convert to Christianity. So that's one story I heard, and usually I think the most popular. The other one, which is still pretty similar, was that people were actually required to eat a sausage to show that they had converted, and so the families would create this particular one. So it wasn't just on a day-to-day basis. We're just hiding the fact like, no, we're, well, we've converted. It was actually, there was some situation, ceremony, process, I don't know, where they would have to actually eat a sausage. So I don't know which is the actual real origin of it, but it's somewhere in there. If I was as good as Mary Rose and Harlequin, I would have done all the research before this, but I'm not that good. You get what you get here. So they're really tasty. They got a good smokiness to them. The texture is really good. Occasionally you can find some more questionable pork bits in there, which I tend to pick out just because I have a textural thing. I like tripe, for example. Tripe is really popular in Portugal too. The stew that they make with it is really delicious, but the actual tripe, the texture of it kind of wigs me out a little bit. So there's some fatty bits that in the sausage that are kind of the same too, but the rest of it's really delicious. So that's an Aida. Really quick. Again, family's coming home soon, so that's one item. Another item, and this brings back a lot of childhood memories, particularly of the summer festivals, and it is sumal. Sumo, it comes in the can. It also comes in little glass bottles, which is my favorite. And it comes in a couple of different flavors. I grew up, the sports club that is in Waterbury, where we'd have a lot of the festivals, they usually just carried orange and pineapple. Pineapple being the favorite of the two. But it wasn't until like my late 20s that I discovered that they have maracuya also, which is passion fruit. Totally the best one. So if you run into small, try and find yourself some maracuya. Delicious. It's kind of like Orangina, if you're familiar with Orangina. The orange flavored sumal would be, that is, and then of course pineapple and passion fruit would have different flavors, but similar. It's basically fruit juice with carbonated water and probably some additional sugar in there too to make it extra sweet. Really good. There is actually a fourth flavor, and I've only seen it advertised in Portugal. I haven't seen it in any of the shops here. Not that I've really dug around that deep to try and find them. But I've never tasted it here or in Portugal, and it's lemon. Lemon is the other one, so it's probably good, I'm assuming, but I don't think it's going to beat out maracuya. Really yummy. Back to pork, and specifically, again, from the region where my family's from, Trás-os-Montes, there is presunto, which is like prosciutto in Italy or jamón ibérico in Spain. And it's a salted cured leg of pork, ham basically, but it's salted and smoked. Anyone who's Italian and Spanish watching this right now, I know you're screaming at the screen telling me it's not the same, but they're essentially the same product, the three. There's differences, I know, relax, I know the arguments, but they're essentially the same product, prosciutto, presunto, and jamón ibérico. So this is just a chunk of it that my dad cut off for me, and I'll show you a picture of what it looks like and the presentation that they have. And it's not really that pretty to look at, but it's just a hunk. Cut it nice and thin if you can. Good smoky, salty pork product we have there. And you know, you can eat that on its own, eat it with some cheese. You can put it in food too, gives it a little saltiness, salty smokiness when you cook with it. It's really good thinly sliced over cantaloupe. That's a pretty popular appetizer actually. And you may have seen this again either with the prosciutto or jamón ibérico, and that's how my parents actually have one of these wooden stands, and then you thinly carve it with the knife up there, and you kind of, you know, cut it thinly that way. So that's presunto. And that is actually the city that's the most famous for that is Chaves, and which means keys. And that's, I have a lot of family that lives in Chaves. And my dad's village belongs to Chaves municipality. My mom's village belongs to Valpaços, which is the next town over, smaller than Chaves. Chaves is known also for these thermal spas, thermal springs, and you can drink the water, which tastes really gross, but it's supposed to be really healthy for you. And they have like actual spas and stuff there. There's an old Roman bridge. So it's a pretty nice town, actually. There's a fort that's still there. So that's it. I had another item, and it was broa, which is Portuguese rustic cornbread, which is my favorite bread also, but we've eaten it. It's gone. It didn't survive by the time I was going to make the Aidas for dinner, so I don't have any of that to show off. But in substitution, I have another item that I can show off. It is not food, and it's not Portuguese, it's Spanish, but you see it a lot in Portugal, and that is the Spanish deck of cards. Oh, and I forgot to look at Mary Rose's video. She had a video where she talked about decks of cards. So here's what we're familiar with, most of us, right? A French deck. This is the French version. But this is Spanish cards, and you'll see for clubs, they have an actual club. And for spades, how did I turn that around? It's the same way. You have spades, like a sword. And then the biggest difference is the hearts and diamonds. And this is part of the reason why I love these cards better than the traditional French cards. Other than the fact that, you know, they look funky and kind of like tarot cards, which is always cool. But in the names made more sense to my Portuguese brain. Because when you're playing with this deck of cards in Portugal, you call these copas, which means cups. You don't say coração, which is hearts. They're copas because they're copas, cups. This is the equivalent in the Spanish deck. Now, I did a little bit of research. Basically, I went on Wiki and read really quickly a few bits of information. There used to be a Portuguese deck, but it is no longer in existence. The closest thing to it is actually Sicilian tarot cards, which, Pietro, if you're watching, we gotta talk about this. It'll be interesting to see. They have the drawings on the Sicilian tarot cards are actually, if not the same, at least the closest relative to what the Portuguese cards were, which are still kind of similar to the French cards too. So for diamonds, we don't say diamantes, which would be diamonds. We say ouros, which is golds, plural of gold, and it means gold coins basically. So really neat. And so they're fun. They're just a lot of fun to play with these cards because they're so different. You'll also notice that, like, for gold, you see the solid border all the way around, but then for the cups, you get one gap, and for clubs you've got three gaps, and where's the sword again? You get 2 gaps. So that was a way of, I mean, other than seeing the actual thing, they put that in the border too. I don't know why. So the other interesting thing about this is, so if you're playing in Spain, the order of the suits is ace, king, queen, jack, just like it is with most traditional American games or with the French deck. But in Portugal, the jack actually outranks the queen. And I never knew why. And again, with the little bit of research that I did on Wiki, and I left all that information over there. So let me go get it. Hold on. I want to make sure I get all my facts correct. So what it turns out, I never knew why, but what it turns out to be is that in the Portuguese deck, well, there was 2 things I saw on Wiki. And again, if I was Mary Rose, I would have done better research to try and find out what the actual truth is. But in the Portuguese deck, it was either that the female was a maiden, not the queen, and that the jack was a knight, he was on a horse. The picture was different. I don't think these are on horse, but these are Spanish decks anyway, so yeah, he's not on a horse. So in Spanish decks, it would still be the king, queen, and then, oh, well, one of them is on a horse, but not all of them are. Anyway. So in the Portuguese deck, it would be king, knight, and a maiden. The other way that I saw on, again, Wikipedia, was that the jack was still a knight, so that's why the jack was second. But then the knave, or the jester, or the page sometimes, was actually a sota, which is a female. So the image in the Portuguese text was actually very distinctly a female page, or other such level, I suppose, of person in court. That's the word I was looking for. So it's one of those two reasons, and you know, I never knew that. I just always knew that we reversed the order when I played Portuguese games. And I played a lot of Portuguese games growing up, two of them in particular, which are kind of basically the same. I loved cards in general. I pretty much always had a deck of cards, and I was always playing with cards. Up through college, I pretty much always had a deck of cards in my purse at any given time. I don't anymore. I guess we have our phones, that keeps you entertained, but I don't know, sometimes I'm like, oh, I should still have a deck of cards with me at random times, but I carry enough stuff with the two kids. We don't need to add a deck of cards to the situation. So anyway, the two Portuguese games that we play is Sueca, by far the most popular in Portugal, Sueca. And then the second one was Bisca de Nove, or sometimes it's called Bisca de Sete, which again, I did not know. My family always called it Bisca de Nove. I don't know why. Bisca de Sete actually makes more sense. Nove is 9, Sete is 7. And Bisca, I don't know what that was until Wikipedia. And let me look at my notes here. So Wiki, according to Wiki, it says Bisca comes from briscola, which is an Italian card game. And Bisca is just the Portuguese word for it. Also, Sueca apparently means it's the female version of Swedish. I don't know if it means a Swedish female or just the feminized version of the word Swedish. Which I know Sweden is Suecia, not to be confused with Suiza, which is Switzerland. Those two get a little confusing sometimes if you don't stop yourself. But I guess Sueca means Swedish. I don't know why, because again, when I was looking through Wikipedia, it was again saying the origins of that was also probably briscola, or a German game called Entwerfen, E-I-N-W-E-R-F-E-N. Anyone who may know about that, let me know. Yeah. And I don't know why we called it Bisca de Nove versus Bisca dos Sete, which makes more sense because you give 7 cards to the players, and the 7 is the Bisca. We call that the Bisca, which is it's one step below the ace, so it actually has a higher value than the king does. And we never have the 8s, 9s, and 10s in the deck of cards when you're playing Sueca, at least. I think you can actually, when you buy cards in Portugal, they might not even have them in them at all. Maybe they do, because they probably just have the same manufacturer, but most of the time you pick up a deck of cards in any Portuguese house, they're either completely missing or they're like the really nice and shiny looking ones, while the rest of the deck is looking really worn because you never play it when you use them when you play Sueca. And so Sueca is basically, Sueca is a 4-player game, and you play in teams. And there's a trump card, so that suit beats everything. And basically the person who's playing, you put down your card and everyone has to follow suit. If you can't follow suit, then you have to throw in a junk card and you lose it right away, whether it has a point or not. And then whoever has the most points at the end wins. And you play with a partner. Bisca de Nove is very similar, but it's just 2 people or 3 people. And you don't have a partner, you just play on your own. But it's a similar game. What else? What else did I find out? Yeah, these are just random notes that I took because I thought it was interesting. Apparently Malta also once used the Portuguese deck. And they have similar ranking where the queen is lower than the jack. I guess in the late 19th century, early 20th century, they stopped doing the Portuguese cards. I already went over that. I don't think I have anything new to add, but I just thought it would be fun to show those cards. Yeah. Oh, and this was kind of fun. The Portuguese cards, apparently the aces were dragons, which would have been really awesome. That's it. I think that's it. So that's all I got for now. I don't know if I'm going to do another one of these videos. I guess we'll see how much you guys like it, and also depending on if I've got any good Portuguese food around the house or any particular Portuguese dish that I'm going to be doing. And again, I'll just show the end result unless there's just like very minimal cooking going on that you could watch. because I don't think watching me wait for water to boil is all that much fun. So I hope you liked it. That's for you, Debbie. If you have any other requests for something, let me know. I'll see if I can manage something. I would show off some Portuguese wine, but the ones that we have here aren't particularly noteworthy. Vinho Verde would be, but we've finished that off. That goes fast in the house. And maybe we'll talk about that the next time I do a video. And that's it. Hope everyone's doing well. I will try and do another cross-stitch video probably in about 2 weeks, I would think. And just have enough on my plate to show off. And that's it. Bye, everyone.